Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. I've had a productive reading week. I started my reading week finishing up Holy Madness by Adam Zamoyski on Saturday. Holy Madness is a history of political romanticism from 1776 to 1871. The two dates are notable because the first is the first year of the American Revolution, or at least the Declaration of Independence. I mean, the American Revolution really started earlier, at least the first battles of the American Revolution. And 1871 is the year of the Franco-Prussian War, or the ending of it. So, Romanticism was an artistic movement that rejected the rationality and mechanistic view of the universe that was promoted by the Enlightenment. And the political expression of the Romantic movement was a radicalization of the Enlightenment, sort of the radicalization you see in the French Revolution and the increasing sort of political extremism that plagued Europe throughout the 19th century, from the revolutions of 1848 through to the nationalisms of the Italian unification and German unification, and also Polish unification. And you also see the rise of professional revolutionaries and all of that toxic stuff. So I really enjoyed Holy Madness. It was really enjoyable, particularly the chapters that focused on the revolutions of 1848 and the Italian Wars of Unification, or Italian Unification, was really good. So really enjoyed this book. I've been wanting to get to something by Adam Zamoyski for a while, and very glad to have finally gotten to it because this was really good. And it definitely has whet my appetite for more histories of the period, particularly the political history, certainly German unification, the other stuff. So, yeah, definitely really good. So after I finished Holy Madness, I had enough time on Saturday to read 2 volumes of manga. Like I mentioned in my earlier video this week about my manga collection, I've largely accomplished most of what I've set out to do with manga once I restarted my collection. A lot of the series that I either wanted to collect or read, I have done so. And so I'm a bit adrift. And one thing I'm doing is trying out new series to see if there are any that I would like to collect further. And so this week I had to go at Mashle, Muscle of Magic, by Hajime Komoto, and Record of Ragnarok by Azychika, Shinya Umemura, and Takumi Fukui. So, Mashle is, you can tell by the cover, heavily inspired by Harry Potter. In this world, pretty much everybody can do magic, except for Mash Burndead, who was born with zero ability to cast spells whatsoever. His adoptive father, fearing for his young son's safety, retreated deep into the woods to live an isolated life, and basically taught Mashle how to survive by essentially cultivating his body by having this insane workout routine to where he is super strong, super durable, but they've lived in isolation. So one day, the adoptive father goes off on an errand and tells his son to stay home. Mash does not do that. He needs some cream puffs. He has a very deep fondness for cream puffs. So he goes into the city to get some cream puffs. He causes a ruckus, and the magical police track him down. And in exchange for leaving the family alone, Mash has to enroll in a magical school where he basically gets in by impressing the headmaster, who is very much XP for Dumbledore and very visually similar to, I think, the look of Dumbledore in the first movie, if I'm not mistaken. And so then Mash basically shows up, a character who's rather like Snape. I think probably one of them's rather like Draco, although I think pretty much everybody's more like Draco than anything else. Yeah. I really didn't like it, because the premise is fundamentally flawed. Mash Burndid may not necessarily be a wizard. He cannot cast spells, but he is superhuman. You cannot walk through a door without opening it. You cannot walk through a hedge mage by walking through the hedges, not walking around them, but directly through them. You cannot swat magical spells like they were balls. Mash is certainly superhuman. So the whole notion just doesn't quite work, although I guess to a certain extent, watching or reading Mash humiliate a bunch of arrogant jerks throughout the entire series probably was a high selling point of the series, but the whole concept really left me cold. And so I'm definitely not going to be continuing on with Mash. I am a bit more torn about Record of Ragnarok. So this is a series that pits 13 representatives of humanity against 13 gods. So in this world, every 1,000 years, the gods come into council to decide whether or not humanity deserves to exist for another 1,000 years. This time, the council decides, perhaps justly, that humanity probably shouldn't deserve another 1,000 years because of all of the degradation of the planet that we've committed, all of the wars, just the monstrosities that have been perpetrated by humanity over the last 1,000 years. So the decision is unanimous, or at least seemingly unanimous, to wipe out humanity. However, the Valkyrie Brunhilde unleashes a clause in the theocratic constitution in which, if this situation happens, that humanity has a chance to protect itself. And so representatives of humanity, 13 warriors selected by the Valkyrie, will challenge 13 representatives of the gods in a sort of, it's not a tournament, because obviously the winners don't advance. It's basically the first team to 7 wins. If humanity wins, humanity lives another 1,000 years, or exists for another 1,000 years. And if the gods win, well, humanity gets wiped out. And the Valkyrie are mostly done for. So basically, the only way that humans can compete with the gods is by having a Valkyrie companion turn into a magical weapon, a Volund, that is capable of wounding and killing a god. And so the series is basically some between fight plot progression and characterization. The fights themselves, which see the human champion and the god champion, or the god, basically facing off. Bits of both figures' histories explored. At least in this first volume, it's more the human story. Some crowd shots of supporters for the god and more so the human. And each fighter basically exchanged special moves or finishing moves. And then rinse and repeat for 13 matches. So the first match is between Thor and Lu Bu, who was a Chinese warrior during the Three Kingdoms period. And the volume ends with Thor getting a power-up, or revealing that he's more powerful than one assumed. I'm torn about the series because, on the one hand, the premise bugs me, really bugs me. I mean, in this situation, does anybody really expect the gods to keep their word if humanity manages to win? No, because this kind of thing is the one thing guaranteed to piss gods off. And I was thinking as I was reading this, wouldn't a better way to prove that humanity deserved to live for another 1,000 years is actually to not prove it by competition, but by cleaning our act up, by showing that, okay, yeah, we've done some horrible things the last 1,000 years, but we can correct it. It just, yeah, so there's that. There's also the possibility, obviously, that some of the gods, some of whom are my favorites, because I am very fond of the Olympians, and the Olympians do play quite a big role in the fights. Most of the time they lose, which is annoying, but anyway. So yeah, but the artwork is amazing. Just let me show you some of it. There's that. It's just, the artwork is amazing. Just, yeah. But and as I was reading this first volume, I was like, I mean, I had my problems with it, obviously, but I'm also kind of attracted to it, which is kind of weird. I mean, I do get these things where I both don't particularly like something, but at the same time, there's something about it that attracts me to it. And I don't know. So I don't know if I'm going to pass up Record of Ragnarok or decide to maybe try a few more volumes and see. If, despite my issues with it, that I like it. We'll see. I will report back at some point. So on Sunday, I read The Holy Roman Empire, A Short History by Barbara Stollberg-Rilinger, translated by Yair Mintzker. So this is a slim history of the Holy Roman Empire. although it starts at 1500, and the Holy Roman Empire is significantly older than that. But this book focuses on the last 300 years of Holy Roman history, when there was a reform movement going on at the end of the 15th and beginning of the 16th centuries that saw certain aspects of the Holy Roman Empire change. And then the book looks at the religious conflict from the Reformation and the 30 Years' War through to the sort of state formation within the Holy Roman Empire that wasn't at the empire level, but at the level of the greater estates within it. So, say Brandenburg, which would eventually become Prussia, or Austria, or Bavaria and Saxony, that. To these greater magnates who eventually would become kings or emperors, seeing that their ambitions weren't being necessarily served by the empire, but by themselves. And so the ultimate dissolution of the empire in 1806 was largely, yeah, you could see it coming, because the empire no longer really had much function for the greater magnates, although it still functioned for the smaller states, most of whom ended up going with Prussia. So it was a really good book. Stollberg-Rilinger looks at exactly what the Holy Roman Empire was. She gives some attention to sort of the joke that the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy, Roman, nor an empire. And she explains how each part came to be. So the holy part is that there's a period when the emperors were contending with the Pope for supremacy. The Pope claimed that as the spiritual head of Christianity, that he reigned supreme, whereas the emperor said, well, no, I'm the temporal power. I have more power than you do. And his supporters largely just tacked on the holy part to the Holy Roman Empire to sort of bolster that impression. And then Roman, generally because the Roman Empire has an enduring fascination centuries after its fall, and that's why it got called Roman. And empire, well, it was an empire. It wasn't as tightly controlled as most empires were. This one was very much and developed in a way to where the imperial power was truncated by the its constituent parts, particularly the stronger members, the electors. So this was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I am very happy that I managed to read it all in one day, because I was afraid that I might not, because Sunday was also a very heavy cooking day. I made a brisket and vanilla pudding and potato salad, and it took a bit. So, yeah, it was a very good reading day. So on Monday, I started my reading for the 2023 Kundal History Prize. I've talked quite a bit about the Kundal Prize. It's one of the premier prizes for, and I think it's the premier prize for exclusive history writing. The long list was announced a few weeks ago, and I have started to pick up some of the long list. And I will talk a bit more about my Kundal history reading plans in a bit, because it's continuing into next week. So for the work week, I read the first of the long list, Courting India by Nandini Das. So this is a spotlight history or a microhistory of the first official English embassy to the Mughal court, the court of Jahangir. So the book focuses on Sir Thomas Roe, who was the ambassador to the Mughal court for James I and the East India Company. So his role was to try to facilitate trade and to increase trade between the East India Company and the Mughals. And he largely failed at that through large fault of his own. He was a tiresome figure. He was a tiresome figure to read about. So I have mixed opinions about this book. I liked it, but I didn't love it. It was okay. The best part of the book are the tangents, the sort of the overview of the period. Sort of, okay, what was England like at this time? What was the court of James I like? What was the history of the East India Company and its factors, and especially by far the looks at the Mughal Empire and India at this time. That was the best part of the book. And one almost wishes for a biography of Jahangir. Another is one of Nur Jahan, his chief consort at this time, that I read a few years ago, which I kind of want to pick up again now. So that's, yeah, so I have mixed feelings. I liked it for the most part, but there are times when Sir Thomas Roe is tiresome. Just tiresome. So anyway, so I will report back once I've read more of the long list towards the announcement of the short list, which ones I think might make it to the short list. And I think if, and then those books that I haven't got to yet that make the short list, then I'll get to those during that period. But for right now, I'm really focusing on the ones that really interest me the most. Which, Courting India was one of those. I am interested in Indian history. I would like to pick up more works on Indian history. So, yeah. So that brings me to this coming reading week. Over the course of the weekend, I plan on reading Red Memory, The Afterlives of China's Cultural Revolution by Tania Branigan. So this is a look at sort of how China has, and the Chinese have sort of told the history of the Cultural Revolution to themselves, I think, and how they conceptualize it, how they confront it and deal with it. I know it's Elizabeth of Buchan's and Books has already read it and talked a bit about it. So I will report back my own thoughts on it and see whether or not I agree with her that is this more reportage or history? And if it is reportage, should it have been nominated? Should it have been longlisted? Okay. And I also hope to get to another work on the long list, American Midnight, The Great War of Violent Peace and Democracy's Forgotten Crisis by Adam Hochschild. So this is a look at the authoritarianism that accompanied America's entry into World War I. Now, if I have time, and if a particular book I'm waiting for comes in this weekend, well, tomorrow, because it's coming through the post office, and except for Amazon packages, the post office doesn't deliver on Sundays. So if it comes in tomorrow, I will read manga that I'm getting to hopefully tomorrow. I'll check when I check the mail tonight. I'll know for sure. Well, I'll know tomorrow whether or not I get it. It's expected Monday, but sometimes it'll come a day early or the delivery day early. So hopefully, I'll read that after I finish Red Memory, and if not, then I'll try to get to it at some point, and I will hopefully be able to report next week what that one is, which is what I'm really looking forward to, because it is a series that I am absolutely loving and that I've caught up with. So anyway, and if I do find myself sort of getting historied out or sort of burning out on history since it's several histories in a row, I will likely uh, find something else to read. I don't quite know what. Um, so, yeah, you'll find out next week what that is because I don't know what's going to be myself right now. Anyway, so next week, I think I'm going to. I don't know if there's going to be an original tag. Um, I've been working on one. I've been thinking about original tags, and it's not quite working out how I want it to. So we shall see. Hopefully, I might have one by my 1000th video. Although I think I would like a bit more of a party for my 1000th video than that. But we'll see. I'll keep working on it during the weekend. And then hopefully there'll be some new tags to do and other videos, some discussion videos. So anyway, until I see you on Monday, thank you, BookTube. Have a great weekend and stay safe.